USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at usaa.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
So, you just started using LinkedIn Premium. Now what? Well, on your premium company page, you noticed around 7.5 times more page engagement and 5 times more page views. Well done. And now, new clients are messaging you. All because you're using LinkedIn Premium, which helps you get the business growth you want. Think big, small business. Think big. Start your free trial at linkedin.com/premium small business. That's linkedin.com/premium small business.
How do you top your love for your cat? With a cascade of decadent savory gravy over a mouth-watering mousse pâté. Fancy Feast gems. 2 gourmet pâtés in one convenient pack. Simply peel and plate to reveal a pyramid shape that makes eating delightful and pamper her with an experience as extraordinary as she is. Turn the everyday into the extraordinary with Fancy Feast gems.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to this edition of There Can Only Be One, the podcast that puts together the all-star best-of playlist of your favorite bands and artists, and a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Hello to all of our listeners in Dublin, Ireland, and to anyone listening on release day for this episode, happy freaking Canada Day, everybody. We're going to have a good time because we are talking about one of the most Canadian bands that ever Canada'd. I'm talking about the one and only Rush. And here to join me, there's no other person that could be on this episode. We're talking about one of the godfathers of prog rock, then Sean Faust, back on the show. Dude, how are you doing, man?
Hello, Canada Day! What are we talking about? I'm sorry. Did I say?
You did. You went there. You went.
Well, it's not a boot. It's a boat. Everybody knows it's a boat. We're going to talk about Rush.
Okay, so as I remember, when we did the Dream Theater episode, your playlist was at, what was it, like 3 hours? Your playlist?
It was long. It was definitely long, and Parasomnia wasn't out yet.
Yeah, and we're going to have to revisit that at the end of the year. By the way, dear listeners, you want to stay tuned for the end of the year episode of There Could Only Be One, because we've been around long enough now that we have covered a number of artists on the show. And a lot of those artists have put out albums in 2025. So we're going to do a catch-up episode of all the new albums from past episodes that were released this calendar year at the end of December. So that's going to be a good one. Yeah, you got some work for yourself there, Sean, because remember, Madonna's also got a new album coming out too.
I know. Oh, I know.
All right, but we are talking about the one, the only Rush. So, Sean, when I threw this at you, because you know I had to come at you with this one. Rush, how stoked are you for this?
Rulers Under Satan's Hand. Oh, that's the devil's music.
That is the first time I've ever heard that acronym used for Rush.
Knights in Satan's Service.
I knew that one.
Okay, and then Rulers Under Satan's Hand.
And they toured together back in the early days, so it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, Geddy talks about it in My Effing Life, his wonderful book.
See, I have his big, beautiful book of bass, but I don't have My Effing Life yet.
You need to, everybody, whether you're a fan of Rush or not, should read My Effing Life. It's just a wonderful read. And if you're not a fan of Rush because of his vocals, he talks about that a lot too. So it's that's not a spoiler. It's Geddy, and it's his wonderful book. I love Rush. I mean, when you mention like the godfathers of prog rock, so we've done Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're doing Rush.
And we've covered Dream Theater too.
But they're not one of the godfathers.
They're not one of the godfathers. They're kind of like, a step uncle.
They're the godfathers of prog metal. So like them and Queensryche.
Yes.
You've got Operation Mindcrime kind of set Queensryche down this path. And then I remember when Pull Me Under was like on the radio, like, oh, it's like Metallica with keyboards. Like, I get it because that's that same kind of intro as Sandman. But they're a different style, but you could hear, but we still have, who's left? There's Yes, there's ELP, there's Tull.
Yeah, there's a list of artists that I want to get on the episode. I know eventually gonna have to try to get a Circus Maximus episode going on. A Fates Warning one would be pretty good too.
Fates Warning. Fates Warning has one of my favorite all-time prog albums with A Pleasant Shade of Grey. What a perfect album, start to finish. And maybe you should listen to it and enjoy it. There are no song titles. It's part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. But yeah, but I mean, what?
Don't forget part 9. Part 9's fantastic.
Stayed up late last night, lying. I love that guitar solo too in part 9. We are talking about the same song. Aren't we?
We are absolutely talking about the same song.
Yeah.
Bravo, kudos to you for picking up on that. When you can just sit there and say, the 9th track, and he knows exactly what I'm talking about. That's why Sean's on this show.
You are, I am. Yeah, actually, that's the album with the mellow, like big ballad type songs are just huge and awesome. Because part 6.
Yeah.
And I know we're not talking about the
We're
fatsies.
diatribing.
We're
diatribing.
Let's get back to Rulers Under Satan's Hand, Chicago.
Yeah, because we're going to be here for a bit because we're about to go through the 20-album discography of Rush. As always, we're not covering any live albums or compilations, which actually means that we can't talk about their very first single, their cover of Not Fade Away, which was eventually released on the Rush 50 album. That song came out before the release of their self-titled debut album, Rush, released March 18th, 1974. The band at this point is Geddy Lee, Alex Lifeson, and John Rutsey on drums. The album hit number 86 on the Canadian charts and number 105 in the US. It's gold in Canada and the US. There were 2 singles off of this one. In the Mood hit number 31 in Canada. So this is, of course, the only album from Rush's discography that does not have Neil Peart on drums. And you can kind of hear, especially in the lyrics, the difference from this album and the rest of their discography. Now, not on this show is our good friend Brian Colburn over from My Weekly Mixtape. And by the way, you have to follow and listen to My Weekly Mixtape. Fantastic freaking podcast. Brian did, however, submit his picks. So off of this disc, he went with What You're Doing. Sean, Balls in Your Court, off the self-titled debut album. What you got?
Well, once again, I got to talk about Geddy's book because I'm with Geddy on this one. In the Mood is just rock and roll. It's that's his favorite song to play, apparently, or at least close the night with. But In the Mood from that album is just rock and roll. It's not Rush like we know it, but it still has that Rush that we know in it.
It's funny because playing in a cover band, every now and then you get someone calling out, "Play some Rush." We had one Rush song in our set list. This was it.
Nice.
In the Mood was, and then people were like expecting like Tom Petty or Tom Sawyer or whatever, not Tom Petty, but Tom Sawyer. And then we throw it In the Mood and they're like, I don't know this one, because they expect the bigger songs, but In the Mood.
Yeah.
Absolutely my pick. I've played it a million times. I completely agree with Geddy. It's a fun as hell song to play. I did have Take a Friend and What You're Doing on my short list, but it's hard to not like In the Mood.
I mean, lyrically, it's, it is what it's about, but it's still upbeat and happy, and it's just rock and roll for that era.
Yeah. And keep in mind, too, no Neil Peart means he's not the one writing the lyrics.
Correct.
So that's probably the biggest thing. Musically, you can kind of hear the same kind of stuff from that earlier discography sound. Lyrically, it's completely different. Next up is Fly By Night, released February 14th, 1975. John Rutsey is out at this point, and Neil Peart is on drums. And of course, this is the final member change we have to talk about. Hit number 9 in Canada and number 113 on the Billboard 200, and is platinum in the US and Canada. There was one single off of this one, Fly By Night, hit number 31 up here in Canada. For Brian's pick, he went with Anthem off of this one, and I completely and utterly have to agree. Even though I did have Fly By Night and Rivendell on my short list, look, You know I'm an Anthrax fan.
Oh, hell yeah.
So when Charlie Benanti gets on the kit and completely destroys this song, like just absolutely killed it. This was off of that Anthems EP from Anthrax. This is one of the best songs on there. And I was like, holy crap. And Joey Belladonna was perfect for doing this
100%,
vocally.
100%.
But yeah, it's hard to not like give kudos where kudos are deserved. Rush knows how to lead off an album. And if you go through this whole discography, you realize that every single one kicks off with an absolute banger.
This is true. I was just doing math in my head, and you've got the formula. I guess you know what you're talking about, eh?
So
Happy Canada Day, everybody.
Off of Fly By Night, what'd you go with?
Well, you know me, right? What do you think I went with?
You know what? I can, if you didn't pick it, I wouldn't be surprised if you had Rivendell on your short list. Because it's a fantastic song.
It's on my short list, but is not. Let's go with the opposite of short.
Are we going for the full
We're not doing
on-
this. We're not doing this on purpose. But Bytor and the Snow Dog has just always done it for me. Especially that riff in the interlude when it just jumps into it's just all boppy and jumpy. It's just I love it. Big Bytor and the Snow Dog fan.
8 minutes and 37 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not
the-
going for this. You'll be surprised with these choices because it's not for me. It's not length. It's just like this song does it for me.
Okay, well, Dream Theater made the length really easy because they were putting on like 20-minute songs on their disc.
I mean, yeah, and that's like the shortest ones on there. I mean, that's another thing. Well, like Rush thinks about songwriting. I guess I approach it the same way they did, where like the song will let you know when it's finished. And just Bytor and the Snow Dog, I think the first time I heard this song, I was like, wow, yes. I mean, well, Rush, yes, has longer songs.
This episode is brought to you by Starbucks. Smooth, bright, deliciously crafted. Introducing Starbucks and Sarah Blend, their smoothest, brightest coffee yet. It's a new kind of light roast, one that's packed with so much flavor, it shines no matter how you brew it. So go ahead and try it hot, iced, black, or with a splash of creamer. Visit athome.starbucks.com/Sunsera-blend-coffee to bring Starbucks Sunsera Blend home.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast here to help you make the most of your summer with Michelob Ultra, a superior light beer worth playing for. Play for it with the guys when you're competing to see who can sink more birdies on the golf course, because winning tastes even better with Ultra on the line. Play for Ultra. Fill your fridge with Michelob Ultra this summer. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Caress of Steel, released September 24th, 1975, hit number 60 in Canada, number 148 in the US, and is gold in both Canada and USA. There were 2 singles off of this one, Return of the Prince and Lakeside Park. For Brian's pick, he went with The Necromancer. This one, not as, I personally found it a little bit of a harder listen to this album than Fly By Night, but your thoughts on this disc?
It's all right. I don't want to say it's a step down from Fly By Night, and it's definitely not the Rush that we're coming to, but it's got hints of it. Lakeside Park is a great song. The first time I ever heard Necromancer, that was Brian's choice, was somebody got me a bootleg of Dream Theater playing at Jones Beach, and they did it. And I was like, wait, I know this title, but I had not listened to Caress of Steel because I knew for years, like, this is an album I'm really going to enjoy, but there was a song on it called I Think I'm Going Bald. I'm like, well, that could be a cool one to cover, until I realized I know I'm going bald. So, but what's weird is Brian and I are 100% on the same page. I went with the Necromancer because this is the song. I dig Lakeside Park, and I think I'm Going Bald is a really fun tune. But the Necromancer is kind of like the shape of things to come.
Yeah. You picked the second longest song on this one. The Fountain of Lamneth actually checks in at 19 minutes and 57 seconds. Necromancer at 12:28. By the way, and here's my bad dad joke for the day. Necromancer. So that's like a vampire, a neck-romancer.
Oh, come on. Come on. Now they're just my assumption, and they didn't follow through with it, but I thought maybe they were like, because we had Rivendell on the album before, is that maybe Neil was going to write a lyric for each album that would have something to do with The Hobbit and the Rings, with Middle-earth. But we didn't get that, as we come to find out later.
I mean, didn't we say all there needed to be said with Leonard Nimoy's The Ballad of Bilbo Baggins?
Bilbo. Dude, that is the most mod video you will ever see. And
Greatest
it's the dancers.
little hobbit of them all.
Bilbo. There's nothing like.
Don't get that stuck in my head.
Austin Powers isn't even that mod.
No.
That is the most mod I've ever seen anything. And just the dancing is like, nobody was even taking acid at this point. Well, maybe they were.
There was something going on with that video.
Oh, my God.
How did we transition from talking about Rush to talking about Leonard Nimoy?
Well, Rivendell, the Necromancer, Bilbo.
Right now, some people are like, what the hell are they on? And other people are like, now it's stuck in my head and it won't go away.
Don't worry. He's going to have the YouTube link for Leonard Nimoy's Bilbo Baggins in the show notes.
Okay, now I have to put that video into the show.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'm putting it in there now.
You should all look it up. Because,
you asked for it.
You'll either be like, Sean Faust, thank you, or beep you.
Right. I'm going with Lakeside Park off of this one for my pick.
Well, of course you are. You live right around the corner.
Right? Geddy and Neil sound great on this, but this is all about Alex Lifeson's guitar tone on this one. Like, really, it's just like a full lush. To give it some kind of description, his guitar tone on this is like a warm hug. It's kind of what it feels like.
That's a good way to put it.
Because it is. It's like so warm. Like it's like probably one of his warmest guitar tones.
I mean, I've never had a complaint about any sound that's come out of Alex Lifeson's guitars.
Oh, there's no complaints at all.
No, he's not, here's the problem. And like, I feel bad for him because he's the other guy that's in a band with Neil Peart and Geddy Lee. And everybody's like, because Geddy Lee plays these really, really like, complicated bass lines, and he's singing something completely independent over it. We'll get to that in a bit too with one of my picks. But this is Geddy Lee, and then he adds keyboards to it at the same time. Then Neil Peart is Neil Peart. So Alex he's just that other guy in Rush. And it's sad because he gets overlooked a lot. His tone, always just on point. It's the most appropriate sound. His playing, gorgeous. He's like another like if somebody was like, hey, you can have Gilmour or Lifeson in a band with you to do this. Like, of course I want to play with Gilmour, but I also want to play with Lifeson and I want to play with Gilmour. Can I have both?
You could literally be like one of the greatest guitarists of all time and still be like the least talented person in the band in this case.
But he's not the least talented. They're all equally talented. I would never say that. Like, I mean, granted, maybe who knows? I don't want to have that conversation. There's nobody least talented in that band. They are all equally amazing.
Yeah. So there's this common, thing where it's like you either love Rush or you hate Rush. Most people who don't love Rush, it's usually because of Geddy Lee's voice.
Right.
Admittedly. But there are musicians who would love them and hate them at the same time. Love them because they are phenomenal musicians. Hate them because we'll never be as good as they are.
Fair enough.
2112, released March of 1976, hit number 5 in Canada, number 61 on the Billboard 200, and number 33 in Sweden. It is triple platinum in the States and double platinum in Canada. There were 2 singles off of this one, Twilight Zone and The Temples of Syrinx. Off of Brian's list, he went with 2112, of course, the title track, the song that really kind of was almost like a flag in the ground for them. And if you've watched the documentary on them, you hear them talking about like how this was very much the make or break album. The label's like, we want radio play, we want singles, and they're like, well, we're going to do this, and you're going to like it, and everyone else freaking loved it. So Rush basically got to call their own shots after this kind of thing. Like, this was very much a statement album for them.
Oh, most definitely.
So off of 2112, what'd you go with?
I went with a shorter song called A Passage to Bangkok. I'm with Jerry Stiller on this one. Maybe they'll do Bangkok. Nah, they never do Bangkok. I love A Passage to Bangkok. Now, the title track is excellent. I love the front half. I love the back half. The tuning my guitar in the middle. You know, I get what the story's doing. I know the story it's telling. And then we got the expanded version with Dream Theater's The Astonishing. Oops, did I go there? Yes, I did. 2112 of Thrones. It's I like it. And cool enough. Go figure. Hey, guess, I saw Dream Theater. And at the end of Scarred, they did the outro of 2112, and it was amazing. They had assumed control. We have assumed control. I love 2112, but as a whole, it doesn't grab me. Passage to Bangkok, another one since day one. I was like, who are these guys?
Well, I went with the long one. I went with 2112 off of this one. It's kind of hard not to, especially when you feel the emotion, like that. You can almost feel the defiance as they're
What's
writing
happening
this,
here?
right?
You're choosing the long songs, and I'm not.
I know. I did have Passage to Bangkok on my short list as well as Lessons, but yeah, no, we'll have to see now who has the longer playlist.
This will be
length.
interesting, yeah.
A Farewell to Kings, released August 29th, 1977. Hit number 11 in Canada, number 33 in the US, and number 22 in the UK. And is platinum in Canada and the US and gold in the UK. Two singles off of this one. Closer to the Heart charted the highest, saying number 44 in Canada and number 76 in the US. Of course, it's my pick. Freaking love Closer to the Heart. Now, I have to put a disclaimer on this. When we did the Tesla episode, remember how I mentioned that a lot of my picks were especially from their earlier discography, was really influenced by what they did on 5-Man Acoustical Jam, because that live album is fan-freaking-tastic.
Yes, it is.
A lot of my picks for Rush are really influenced by two albums, A Show of Hands and Different Stages, two live releases. These were constantly played in my little yellow Sony Walkman. They were played in my Discman. They were played however I could get my hands on them. Freaking amazing live albums. I used to I'm a white noise sleeper. I always have to listen to something when I'm going to sleep. And for the longest stretch of time, I would just put on an album. I would always put on live albums because in my mind, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to be on, I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to be on that stage. And when you watch those videos from the Show of Hands tour, I wanted to be on that stage. Maybe not with that mullet, but I wanted to be on that stage.
That Geddy Lee mullet from A Show of Hands is awesome.
That is all business in the front, party in the back kind of haircut right there. But yeah, I was very, very influenced by A Show of Hands, especially. That album was really the everything of Rush to me. Yes, Chronicles is huge as far as a compilation album goes, but Show of Hands really kind of defined what I loved about Rush at the time. Closer to the Heart is fantastic on all of their live albums. And of course, it was going to be my pick. Brian ended up going with Xanadu for his pick. But now, Farewell to Kings, the ball's in your court, dear sir. What are you going with?
This is where it's going to get weird later on. So here's my favorite Rush song. And I'm sure this won't shock you as my choice. First, I got to say that Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres to me are a double album, and it's my favorite double album of all time. And it's my favorite Rush double album. It's my favorite Rush album. I'm with you on A Show of Hands. That was like my gateway drug. And then Chronicles, and then Roll the Bones came out. I think it had come out like the year before. So I got into Rush around 92-ish. And man, that Close to the Heart was great. But sometimes they would end with boom, boom, ba-da-dum. Boom, 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 ba-da-dum, boom. Cygnus X1 The first time I heard this song was in 1993, and I was falling asleep listening to this beautiful album. And of course, I'm falling asleep, and then and what the is that? I'm so scared. And ever since then, this has been my favorite. Just I love the groove of it. It's not even the prog rock odd time of it. It's just that how simply it grooves. And there's nothing in there that says we are musicians. Listen to us play. It's just this amazing song about the black hole.
Now, we're talking about the black hole, the real black hole, or we're talking about Black Hole, the Disney movie? Because that came out after this.
Oh, I'm aware. I'm aware. And Dr. Reinhardt's ship is called the Cygnus, USS Cygnus. And, you know, oddly enough, black holes were still a theory when that movie came out.
Yeah. If any Disney movie needs a remake these days, it's the black hole.
They'll just ruin it.
I know they'll ruin it, but it still deserves a remake.
If it's going to be done properly.
Yeah.
No, we need a prequel now to find out why Hans Reinhardt became a bad guy, and we're going to show how he's a good person. There's very few
Don't give
prequels.
Disney ideas.
First of all, man, Arthur Fleck, you ever hear of a movie called Joker? He was a pretty okay guy. Society created the evil. Have you seen Wicked?
I have not, actually.
Society. Actually, animal abusers. Spoiler alert, everybody. Sorry, just saw it the other day, by the way. Blown away by those performances, both of them. But yeah, animal abusers. She stands up to defend animals, and that's why she's wicked. I'm fine with these, but I don't need a backstory for every villain to be like, oh, but they were really a good person. Anakin. Jesus, how do I forget Anakin? Like, oh, they were really a good person, then this happened. Yeah, society sucks. Let's move on. Well, Cygnus X1, that's my pick from A Farewell to Kings. Damn it.
Well, let's move on then to Hemispheres, released October 24th, 1978. Hit number 14 in Canada and the UK and number 47 in the US. It's platinum in Canada and the States. There was one single off this one that did not chart, Circumstances. For Brian's pick, he ended up going with La Villa Strangiato. And I remember watching that documentary and how they were talking about how this song became like the most impossible song for them to record. And then you listen to it and it's like, yeah, I can kind of see that.
That's quite the dream that Alex had there, though, huh? I want to know, like, what dream is this the soundtrack for? And when did the original Looney Tunes show up? Right?
Enjoy the drinking game, everybody. Every time I say right, take a shot. You won't survive to the end of the episode.
Oh, don't be like that. Just, be all about it. Sorry, all about it. My bad.
All right, now we're gonna have to add a boot to the drinking game.
No, I know but that's me screwing up because I'm supposed to say about.
All right, so off of this disc, apparently the second part of A Farewell to Kings. What'd you go with?
Well, Cygnus X1 because it's the same album. So if I'm gonna go with Cygnus X1, what Hemispheres? Of course, I'm going with the second Cygnus X1 Book 2, Hemispheres. Yeah, the long track.
Of course you did.
Yeah, well, dude, I love this song. This song really goes places. And in his book, this is the song Geddy was. They had written the music, they had recorded the music, and then it came time to like lyrics and melodies. And all of a sudden, he's like, "Well, I can't sing this high. What are you talking?" And then like singing that stuff while playing what he's playing was a lot of work for him. But it was mostly this is where the really, really high stuff comes into play for him.
The album that would break most mortal men, Geddy Lee Conquers.
Pretty much.
All right, so off of A Farewell to Kings, I went with the second shortest song on that disc. Off of Hemispheres, I'm taking the second shortest song off this one too. I'm going with The Trees.
I knew you were going to go with it. I don't know why, but the shortest song has been chose for you.
Yeah, but again, this is one of those things where live albums and chronicles, like this is where a lot of my influence, a lot of my picks is coming from, because those are the albums that I binged and lived and breathed on during that time.
And their set list on the Test for Echoes tour was phenomenal. Like it wasn't just like, hey, let's force our new album down your throat. They ran the gamut. So, The Trees was in there. They did all of Natural Science. They did all of 2112. there was a lot of like just interesting deep cuts in that. So I know with you listening to, now I'm looking at the album cover in my head. And I can't remember what's that live album called?
Which one? Show of Hands or Different Stages?
No, Different Stages. Thank you. Different Stages is the Test for Echoes tour.
Yeah.
Man, just that set list and their song choice for that entire tour was wonderful. So The Trees doesn't shock me.
Permanent Waves, released January 14th, 1980, hit number 3 in Canada and number 4 in the US. It's platinum in Canada and the States. 2 singles off of this one. The Spirit of Radio peaked at number 22 in Canada, number 51 in the US, and number 13 in the UK. Off of Permanent Waves, Brian ended up going with The Spirit of Radio. I went with The Spirit of Radio as well because it's the freaking Spirit of Radio. Are we 3 for 3 on this one, Sean?
Yeah, I'm going with The Spirit of Radio. We're going to make this a trifecta, but Natural Science is another, just when I first heard it blew me away, but Spirit of Radio is that song that's been, I've never gotten sick of it. And that's a song you hear on the radio a zillion times where it could be somebody's favorite song, but you hear it for the millionth time. You're like, all right, whatever. I'm kind of done with this song. Everybody knows what I'm talking about who listens to music. Spirit of Radio, every time I hear it, it's like that first time I'm like, oh my God, I'm so happy. I'm in such a good mood now.
Yeah, I had Free Will and Entre Nous on my short list as well. This is a fan-freaking-tastic album.
I love this album.
Oh, yeah.
And look, so remember a while ago we were talking about like threes? Like 3 perfect albums in a row?
Yep.
Pharaoh the King's Hemisphere, Permanent Waves, right here.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And we're about to make it 4, aren't we?
Yeah, 4 because there's Moving Pictures. Released February 12th, 1981. Hit number 1 in Canada. So the answer to the trivia question, what was Rush's first number 1 album? It was in Canada. It was Moving Pictures. It also hit number 3 in the UK and US. It is 5 times platinum in the US, 4 times platinum in Canada. There were 3 singles off of this one. Limelight charted the highest, hitting number 18 in Canada, number 55 on the Billboard 100, and number 8 on the US mainstream rock charts. And at the 24th Grammys, YYZ was nominated for Best Rock Instrumental Performance, but lost to Behind My Camel by The Police. For Brian's pick off of Moving Pictures, he ended up going with Tom Sawyer. I went with Tom Sawyer too. Sean, are we 3 for 3 off of this disc?
We are not the same. I apologize. I love Tom Sawyer. But you know how I was talking before about songs you've heard a million times?
Mm-hmm.
I don't hate Tom Sawyer. I love Tom Sawyer. But it's not my pick. I went with Vital Signs.
Oh, good
Now,
call.
I almost went with The Camera Eye, but I didn't go with the longest song. I went with the second longest song. But Vital, this was a very tough album for me to choose from. Because every song on it is kind of perfect. It wasn't the toughest album to choose from, but it was a very tough one. But Vital Signs just kind of does that for me. And this is also them like almost going into their Police sound. You know what I'm talking about? There's that bit, like that little backbeat that they do.
Yeah. I mean, I'll admit that, I was talking about being in a cover band and people would call out for Rush. And every now and then you do a little riff tease. You start playing something and then you stop and then you play something else entirely. YYZ is that I'm just gonna f with you for a little bit there, people. I'm just gonna play that for a little bit and then I'm just gonna go into what we're gonna play in the mood. I had YYZ, Limelight, and Red Barchetta on my short list, but yeah, this to me. This was my introduction to Rush as far as, aside from those live albums, but like sitting down, watching like CBC's video hits and then of course Much Music when it came on, like this was that era of Rush that I was really, this was my introduction to it. It was through Much Music, it was through video hits, it was through those kind of shows and channels because Rush was really good at putting out music videos that were getting played ad nauseum on Canadian airwaves because CanCon for the win. Tom Sawyer, I still remember that video because they recorded it in the studio in Montreal. Like it's iconic. It's absolutely iconic. Even in its simplicity for a video, it's iconic. Signals, released September 9th, 1982. Here's another number 1 in Canada, number 3 in the UK, number 10 in the US, platinum in the US and Canada. Now, The trivia question is, what was Rush's first ever #1 single in Canada? That answer is New World Man, one of 3 singles released off of this. Hit #1 in Canada, number 21 on the Billboard 100, and #1 on the US mainstream rock charts. Off of Signals, Brian ended up going with the Analog Kid. We are not in agreement on this one. Sean, what'd you go with off of Signals?
You're the odd man out. I also went with the Analog Kid.
Ooh, okay. So now I get to be the one to break the trifecta. This feels like an old episode of Playlist Wars.
Except, there's no competition here.
No.
You're just wrong.
Although I don't think I'm wrong when I say I'm picking Subdivisions off of this.
You are definitely not wrong at all.
Let's be honest.
There's no wrong choice.
There is no wrong
ever,
choice.
But there's definitely no wrong choice on this album.
No, hells no. I had New World Man on my short list, but no. To me, it's Subdivisions, and it's all in the lyrics on this one. It's a great song, but lyrically, this may be, to me, the most iconic Rush lyrics out there. At least the most relatable.
Definitely one of the, I would say, definitely one of the most relatable.
Yeah, because that's the thing. You're sitting at home, you're watching this video, or you're listening to this song on the radio, and you can associate with the lyrics. Yes. I don't know if I personally associated with Bytor and the Snow Dog.
How did you not associate? Are you serious? You can't put yourself in that situation. You've never been in that situation in your life, man.
I can safely say no.
Like, did you identify with YYZ? I've never been to Toronto International Airport. So, I'm sorry, YYZ. We're assholes because we keep saying Z. It's what they call it, YYZ. So it's YYZ. That's the name of the song. Period. I agree with you about those lyrics though for Subdivisions because I was definitely not one of the cool kids. I'm a prog rock musician, so it means I practiced a lot and I'm a nerd because I like Star Wars and the Black Hole. So yeah, I'm not that cool part of society, folks.
Hey, you know what? You're cool
Shattered
in these books.
Dreams.
Cool in these books, and that's all that matters.
I'm cooler now than I was then because I just own it. And I think like it's funny as you grow up, and it's Subdivisions. It's like Stand By Me. When you're a kid and you watch Stand By Me, like wow, cool kids cursing a lot and smoking cigarettes. And when you're older, you watch that movie and you're like, man, this movie is about the death of innocence, and it's heartbreaking. And Subdivisions is kind of like, yeah, I'm on the other side of it now because like the cool kids and like the jocks and all that. Like, they ask you if you want to supersize your fry order now. And you're doing something that's valuable. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that, like, people working is a bad thing. I'm just saying their station in life changes because they're still stuck in that high school mentality. I'm an angry person, I know. You're looking at me like, dude, what the hell is this rant? But I feel you on Subdivisions. However, I'm sticking with the Analog Kid.
Grace Under Pressure. Released April 12th, 1984, hit number 4 in Canada, number 5 in the UK, and number 10 in the US. It's platinum in the US and Canada. There were 4 singles off of this one. Distant Early Warning charted the highest, hitting number 3 on the US mainstream rock charts. And The Body Electric hit number 86 in Canada. This was a tough one for me. Like,
this is a solid album.
Oh, absolutely.
So we're up to, wait. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're at 6 albums in a row that are just solid.
But this was literally a 1-2 fight. This was a flip of the coin for me.
Wow.
On one hand, one side of the coin, you got Distant Early Warning. Because, again, influenced by much music, as we all know. Watching that video, there was nothing I wanted more than that Factor 4-string bass with no headstock and the tuning pegs at the bottom. It was the coolest freaking looking bass. I eventually tried one. Not that good of play, but but it was the coolest looking bass because there was no headstock. I'm like, where are the tuning pegs? They're down here. Oh, this is awesome. Because of course Geddy Lee's also like one of the best basses ever. So like, if Geddy likes it, that bass must be awesome. I'm glad I didn't buy one. But then on the other hand, influenced again heavily by the live albums, is Red Sector A. And yeah, I'm going with Red Sector A, as did Brian. So, Grace Under Pressure, the trifecta goes to you, sir.
Trifecta, motion carried. Also, inspired by a show of hands, I went with Red Sector A. And if you read the book, yeah, these lyrics are even sadder than you could imagine.
Yeah, it's don't try to associate. Just don't try to associate.
No, just don't. But it's just love the song, appreciate the song, read the book, move forward.
Power Windows, released October 11th, 1985, hit number 2 in Canada and number 10 on the Billboard 200. It is platinum in Canada and the US. There were 2 singles off this one. The Big Money hit number 52 in Canada and number 4 on the US mainstream rock charts. For Brian's pick off of Power Windows, he ended up going with Big Money. What'd you go with?
Once again, inspired by a show of hands, I went with Marathon. I love how huge that chorus gets and how that ending solo. I'm glad for a show of hands because how it fades out on the album, it just keeps going. But this is not a show of hands, but I'm still going with Marathon because I love that song. That's like a top 10 Rush tune for me.
Yeah, and again, influenced by a show of hands. And that's one of those things. Like it's the laser light show. It's like all like the cat characters on the screen with the big enlarged eyes kind of thing as you get this massive chorus. Right? But again, this is also one of those things where I have to give credit where credit is due to Neil Peart as far as lyrics go. And it's just that line, from first to last, the peak is never past. Something always fires the light that gets in your eyes. One moment's high and glory rolls on by like a streak of lightning that flashes and fades in the summer sky. God damn, that's just pure poetry.
Yeah, that guy could write. And this is another one that's relatable.
Yeah. And you feel empowered listening to this song. You feel hype. You feel lifted up. And I know there are people who will sit there and argue about the different eras of Rush. There's like the original raw Led Zeppelin-esque vocals kind of era of Rush. Then you have the keyboard heavy centric Rush from the 80s and the early 90s. And then you have like the last group of albums as well where they got back to that rock sound. There is nothing at all wrong with keyboard era Rush. Absolutely killed it.
I think it's because you and I are such huge fans of A Show of Hands and just how well those songs are presented, that keyboard era Rush is just great Rush.
But I think it's also, maybe it's a musician thing, right? Where this album comes out at such a pivotal moment of your music upbringing, and you see musical idols on stage in such a fantastic concert video.
Yeah. I heard the album first. So when I finally saw the video, there were songs on the video that weren't on the tape. So 2 things that happened from that was Territories. I love Territories, and that was almost a choice for this. It was a short list. But because of Territories, a song called Balance by Money for the Toll wrote itself. And I don't know how to explain that except Pat, our drummer, started playing the beat. So I just droned, the bass player and I at the same time, Gordon and I just at the same time, I started droning a pad on the keyboard on a D, and he started doing boom, boom. And my keyboard part, that ba-da-da-da, is inspired by Territories by Rush. The other thing I need to know from that video is, what are Alex's lyrics over La Via that are censored?
I now have to go back and rewatch that.
See, I just inspired you to rewatch A Show of Hands.
I have to point out, though, I had Manhattan Project on my short list off of that
Another
album.
great one. Another great one.
Fantastic.
As far as like the keyboard heavy era of Rush, this is probably my favorite album of theirs from this era.
Yeah, Grace Under Pressure and Power Windows for me, kind of hand in hand of that era.
Fair enough.
Hold Your Fire, released September 8th, 1987, hit number 9 in Canada, number 13 on the Billboard 200. It's platinum in Canada and gold in the US. There were 2 singles off of this one. Time Stands Still, hit number 52 in Canada and number 3 on the US mainstream rock charts. So Hold Your Fire, maybe not as complete an album as Grace Under Pressure or Power Windows, but your pick off of this.
I'm pretty sure this is a given. If this isn't a trifecta, it's going to blow my mind, but it's Time Stands Still. I think this is more relatable probably to me because I've got age issues and I've had them since I was like 16 or 17. But I relate to every second of this song, especially summer's going fast, nights growing colder, children growing up, old friends growing older. Time Stands Still is gorgeous. But what did you go with?
If you go back to when we did the Dream Theater discography, I mentioned that when we got to the album A View from the Top of the World, that Transcending Time felt like the spiritual sequel to Time Stands Still, which is why I'm going with Time Stands Still here. It is a freaking fantastic song. Always will be. I didn't have a short list. It was literally like, oh, hey, Time Stands Still is on this disc. That's my pick because I knew I was going to pick it because there's no getting around it. But the trifecta is broken.
What? Did he go with Mission?
No, he ended up going with Second Nature for his pick.
Oh, I mean, there's some like really cool bass playing going on that tune, so I can...
And hand it to the bass player to pick the bass heavy song. Presto, released November 17th, 1989, hit number 7 in Canada and number 16 in the US. It's platinum in Canada and gold in the States. There were 2 singles off of this one. Show Don't Tell hit number 1 on the US mainstream rock charts. And at the 1991 Junos, they won Best Hard Rock Metal Album for this disc. And it's a banger. Like this album, there is still some keyboard influence in it, but you can hear they're starting to get a little bit more back into the rock side of things. Brian ended up going with Show Don't Tell for his pick. What did you go with off of Presto?
Well, first I'll say, can you imagine that there was a time in my life that I did not like this album at all?
Really?
Yeah. I found it just, there was something about the production that just didn't do it for me. Meanwhile, I loved Roll the Bones, and that's kind of got a thinner sound to it as well. But Presto, for the longest time, I didn't dig. And if it wasn't for Russian Rio, I wouldn't have revisited it because my choice is The Pass. And I went back to this album, and I love this album. And this last time I listened to it to take notes for the show, there's no short list. There's The Pass.
There's a short list for me. The short list is Show Don't Tell and Superconductor. But yeah, I'm completely in agreement with you. The Pass. And this is a song that I wasn't necessarily as familiar with. But of course, I try and go through every single album because I'm extra. I have listened to 20 albums in preparation for this disc. I am ready for this. But The Pass kind of caught me at a left field. And Presto was one of those albums that I'm kind of like you. I used to kind of pass over it. Like Show Don't Tell, yeah, it was on Much Music and it was on the airways, and it hit number 1 on the mainstream rock chart, so I get it. The Pass is one of those hidden gems, and freaking love this song. I love just it's almost like the comfortable full on bass line that Geddy Lee puts in, because it's not necessarily one of his typical very complex bass lines. It's very full. It's very warm. It's very, very open, if you will. He's
playing chords. I mean, like he's like, you know what? I'm going to start this song with chords.
Yeah. It's different. It's out of left field for him, but it fits the song perfectly to a T.
If you went on a road trip and you didn't stop for a Big Mac or drop a crispy fry between the car seats or use your McDonald's bag as a placemat, then that wasn't a road trip. It was just a really long drive. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's.
Meta AI is the personal AI to help you with whatever you need. Plus, it meets you where you are. Not only is Meta AI now an app, but it's also on the apps you already know and love. Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Messenger. Plus the Ray-Ban Meta glasses. It's easy to access wherever you are. So whether you're talking or texting, Meta AI is convenient to use throughout your day. Experience our newest AI that's tailored to you by downloading the Meta AI app. Try the Meta AI app today on the Apple App Store and Google Play.
With EA Sports College Football 26, you can rise from high school recruit to Heisman legend or cement your legacy as a coach by leading your program to glory. Pre-order the deluxe edition of the game today as part of the MVP bundle at go.ea.com/MVP-bundle to start playing 3 days early and more. EA Sports College Football 26 is rated E for everyone. Includes in-game purchases, including random items.
Roll the Bones. Released September 3rd, 1991, hit number 11 in Canada, number 3 in the States. It's platinum on both sides of the border. There were 3 singles off of this one. Roll the Bones hit number 25 in Canada. Ghost of a Chance hit number 2 on the U.S. mainstream rock charts. At the 1992 Junos, they won Hard Rock Album of the Year, and at the 34th Grammys, Where's My Thing was nominated for Best Rock Instrumental Performance, but lost to The Cliffs of Dover by Eric Johnson. Now, I'm not one to sit there and say that Rush should ever lose to anybody, but if you're going to lose to anything in the instrumental rock performance, Cliffs of Dover is a pretty damn good track to lose to.
Yeah, that's acceptable. That's perfectly acceptable. I love that song.
That is a tip your hat moment for that one. Off of Roll the Bones, Brian ended up going with the title track, Roll the Bones. What'd you go with?
So I cover Bravado. I love Bravado. Lyrically, everything about Bravado. The Russian Rio version of Bravado is awesome. That's my shortlist. And my shortlist was Bravado, You Bet Your Life, and Where's My Thing. I went with Ghost of a Chance.
I'm trying to think whether I sent you my list or not. Because
you did not.
I had Roll the Bones on my shortlist. I had Bravado on my shortlist, but I went with Ghost of a Chance. And this is one of those songs where it's like you have a mid-tempo verse, but then you have a very ballad-like chorus. It's almost like the opposite of what you would expect, but I actually love the transition to it. And
It's beautiful. It's my friend Tom's favorite Rush tune, and like he's like this guy's all about prog too, and like he'll tell you, Ghost of a Chance, best thing they ever did. And I'm with him. Actually, I'm with him in that the song for this album is the best thing they did. But this was another album that was really tough to choose from. I keep in mind when I was getting into Rush, there was Chronicle, there was Show of Hands, and there was this. So this is what I had at the time. So I've got this album has a very soft spot in my heart.
I still remember when Roll the Bones came out and you're like, Rush is rapping? Rush has a rap?
Look, if Neil wants to rap, let Neil rap.
And that we did, and it was awesome. Counterparts, released October 18th, 1993, hit number 6 in Canada, number 2 in the U.S. It's platinum in Canada and gold in the U.S. There were 2 singles off of this one. Nobody's Hero hit number 9 on the U.S. mainstream rock charts. And at the 37th Grammys, Leave That Thing Alone was nominated for Best Rock Instrumental Performance, but lost to Marooned by Pink Floyd. And if you're going to lose to anyone in the instrumental category, losing to Pink Floyd, another hat tip moment.
Here's my controversial take. Marooned is overrated. I saw Gilmore twice back in November. Marooned started. I went to the bathroom. I don't hate it. It's just overrated. Leave That Thing Alone is fantastic, and it should have won. Still, if you're going to lose to Pink Floyd.
Right. Off of this album, though, what'd you go with?
So, another tough album for me, but the one song that stood out always from the first listen to this day, it's Nobody's Hero.
And I still remember, too, if I remember correctly, I think it was Matt Mahurin who had directed that music video for that one. Gorgeous freaking video.
Never saw it.
Really?
Yeah, never saw it.
No. Like, because it was very reminiscent of the Another Rainy Night Without You video from Queensryche off of the Empire album. So it kind of had that same kind of feel to it. Brian, of course, went with Animate off of this album. Another killer opening track. Brian loves his opening tracks. I completely agree with him. Animate is totally my pick off of this one because that drum intro from Neil is just so chunky. And so like this is we're going to like put the rock back into everything and put the keyboards away. And I had Nobody's Hero and Cold Fire on my short list.
This is another album. It's just tough for me. I love this album. The story, or at least the urban legend of this album, is that either like one of Alex's kids' friends or Geddy's kids' friends was like, oh yeah, but your parents do old people soft rock. They don't play hard rock anymore. And they were like, oh, challenge accepted. And that's why like, especially like Animate and Stick It Out are very heavy tunes.
Oh yeah. I mean,
for Rush at least.
I think me personally, this is my favorite front to back Rush album.
Yeah, I said there's that Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres and Permanent Waves and Moving. This is an album I put on more often than others, though.
Test for Echo, released September 10th, 1996, at number 3 in Canada and number 5 in the US, and it's gold in Canada and the States. I struggled with this one when it first came out. And let me explain. This was produced by Peter Collins. And a year later, Peter Collins also produced Here in the Now Frontier from Queensryche. And I found at the time that both had a thinner sound, especially coming off an album like Counterparts. Counterparts was so big and so full. And Test for Echo to me sounded a little bit thinner, but maybe I was still kind of feeling the rawness off of Here in the Now Frontier, because again, going from Promised Land to that disc was a massive sound shift for Queensryche.
Oh, that's the problem with that album?
Well, it's one of the problems with that album.
I don't know. I was upside down, inside out.
I mean, there are some good songs on there.
Oh, I know you're a huge fan.
I know.
You don't have to lie to me. You is a really good song.
Off of this, Brian ended up going with Virtuality. What'd you go with off of Test for Echo?
Now check this out, man. Neil decides that he feels that his playing is stale. So he goes and studies some jazz stuff. And he completely reinvents his playing. And right out of the gate, Test for Echo, he's just like, yep, this is where I'm at now. And this is how I'm approaching drums now. And it's just showcased immediately. So I went with the title track. Also, just the fact that like Neil just completely wanted to reinvent himself because he felt he was stale. That's dedication to a craft when you're already, thought of as the world's greatest drummer.
Never one to settle.
Correct. But yeah, I went with the title track, Test for Echo.
It's a good track. It's an absolutely
But you probably
good track.
went with Resist because it's Canada Day, right?
Well, I had Test for Echo and I had Half the World on my short list. But yeah, I went with Resist.
It's a great song. It was on my short list. There were 2 songs on my list. I do love the chorus for Virtuality.
See, for Resist, for me, it's the bridge. It's absolutely the bridge. And again, Neil's lyrics. I can learn to close my eyes to anything but injustice. I can learn to get along with all the things I don't know. Like it's powerful in its simplicity. And I find that Neil's lyrics, when they weren't telling grandiose stories like in 2112, were really, really poignant and poetic.
He was an absolute humanist, and you can tell by lyrics like Resist.
Oh, absolutely.
Dude, I loved it. I loved it, like making a joke about Resist, and you actually chose Resist. And this is the definitive version of Resist. I don't really like it live. I don't like how it's broken down to just acoustic. It's good, like how they do it, but like that studio version of Resist is just beautiful. And especially like that little thing. But yeah, your choice is excellent. I'm still sticking with Test for Echo, but Resist was my short list.
Vapor Trails, released May 14, 2002, hit number 3 in Canada and number 6 in the US, and is gold in Canada. For Brian's pick off of Vapor Trails, he ended up going with One Little Victory. I'm going to be very, very honest. I found this one a hard listen.
Did you go with the remix or did you use the original?
I went with what they had on Spotify at the time as I was doing my listens.
Gotcha.
But
I don't know.
I found this, at least the songwriting for this album, it felt all kind of in the same gear.
So Neil's daughter and wife had just died, and they didn't even know if Rush was coming back. This, between Test for Echo and Echoes and this. And I think opening with One Little Victory was just, hi, we're back. This, I hated this album when it first came out, including One Little Victory, including my choice, including a lot of tunes on this. When I got that box set that's Presto through Snakes and Arrows, I listened to Vapor Trails last because I was like, I just want to make sure there's no skips or anything like that. But I was like, wow, I gave this album such an unfair, I treated this album so unfairly over the years because that original mix just nothing really stood out. Nothing grabbed for you, but there's some really, really good stuff on this album. What did you go with?
Well, I had How It Is and Vapor Trails on my short list, but I ended up going with Sweet Miracle. And it's just one of those ones where this was the one that really kind of stood out with me. And yes, I fully acknowledge that this cannot have been an easy time for the band as a whole to go through that kind of loss and then to try to pour your heart out on paper and music again. Fully understand it. It's just one of those things where if you take a look at it just as a collection of songs, it doesn't stand up to some of the others, but it's completely understandable. And even though, that being said, a bad Rush album is still better than so many other albums out there.
No, by far, absolutely. On this listen for me, I really thought I was going to go with Earthshine. I was like, yeah, it's going to be Earthshine. And I get to Earthshine. I'm like, oh, it's totally Earthshine, and then Freeze. And I was just like, why don't I ever think of this song? Oh, yeah, because it's like the fourth time I've heard this album. But my choice is Freeze, with Earthshine as my short list.
We get our one and only EP for this list, Feedback, released June 29th, 2004. Hit number 5 in Canada, number 19 in the US. This is a collection of cover songs that Rush put together. Your thoughts on this disc as a whole? Because I know you love cover songs.
I mean, I'm not like as crazy about them as Brian is. I like cover songs when they're done well, and that's not, their big shtick focus. I remember when this came out. I remember when Summertime Blues was all over the radio down here, and I was like, that's really cool. And when I listened to the whole album, I was like, it just sounds like Rush saying, I love you all. Like, or I love you to the songwriters, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And man, this was I don't want to call it a labor of love, because this stuff has got to be much easier to play than a Rush tune, but it was a recording of love from Rush to their influences.
For Brian's pick, he ended up going with The Seeker. What's your pick off of this?
For my pick, I ended up going with The Seeker as well.
So it's up to me for the trifecta, isn't it?
But do we have a trifecta here?
We do not. The Seeker.
So no Loving Cup?
Nope.
Double gobble.
Shapes of Things and Heart Full of Soul were on my short list, but I ended up going with 7 and 7 Is. Now, I had never heard of the band Love. I didn't know the song existed. Whenever you hear a band do an album of covers, I always find it one of the more fascinating listens, because obviously these artists would go and get songs that they freaking love and do their own version of it. Anthrax's covers are always fantastic to listen to. Tesla, of course. Tesla's fantastic.
Skid Row's B-Sides.
I was about to say, yeah. Like, you cannot deny that Skid Row EP. This one was really, really interesting, because I'm like, well, who inspired one of the most inspiring bands of their time? And it's really cool to discover some of these artists that you'd never heard of before. I don't know if I'm going to go and deep dive Love, but 7 and 7 is a fantastic song and fits Rush perfectly.
I think Brian and I know I went with The Seeker because I know that the Ox was one of Geddy's favorite bass players and one of his inspirations. So, and you can hear it in the song. So, but going with Love is a really good choice too. But now I really want to listen to Besides Ourselves.
Snakes and Arrows, released May 1st, 2007. It hit number 1 on the UK rock and metal charts, the US top rock and tastemaker charts, and number 3 in Canada and the Billboard 200, and it's gold in Canada. There were 3 singles off of this one: Far Cry, Spindrift, and The Larger Bowl. At the 50th Grammys, Malignant Narcissism was nominated for Best Rock Instrumental Performance, but lost to Bruce Springsteen for Once Upon a Time in the West. And at the 51st Grammys, Hope was nominated for Best Rock Instrumental Performance, but lost to Zappa Plays Zappa doing Peaches and Regalia. So, a lot of Grammy nominations, no Grammy wins for Rush, which feels like that's a missed opportunity there. Like, you had 2 chances off that album. Come on. Snakes and Arrows, Brian ended up going with Spindrift. What'd you go with?
I went with Armor and Sword.
You got the one song that was on my short list.
I love that chorus. That's the strongest chorus on that album, in my opinion. It's a good album. There's something about that album. I like that it was written on an acoustic. I like that they just tried something different, as they always do. I don't mean this as an insult, but it's a very background music album. I don't think it's an album you put on to like rock out to. It's an album you put on like, I want to listen to some Rush while I concentrate on something else. And I feel like I'm insulting them, and I really don't mean that as an insult. But Armor and Sword, that's the one that stops me in my tracks every time I listen to this album. And granted, I'm one song in at this point, but still, I love this tune. This is a great album overall.
See, I'm going to argue that one, because if you want to rock out and you want to put a Rush song on, Far Cry is not a song that you can skip on, because holy crap, has this got some punch and some great bass work in it too. And remember that this one was produced by Nick Raskulinecz, who's been known to put a little oomph into the records that he's producing. Far Cry has the oomph behind it. Absolutely.
It does. It's my short list, but after you get past these two songs, I should say that. But I'm not saying it's a bad album. It's not. The main Monkey Business is also awesome and on my short list. But Armor and Sword, just every time I listen to this album, like maybe it's just because that chorus moves me so much that I'm just checked out after it. Where it's like, oh yeah, I'm sure you're nice. Oh yeah, this is a pretty song. But Armor and Sword, just like it's already like, milked me for a lot. I don't know how to describe it.
We end our journey with Clockwork Angels, released June 8th, 2012. Hit number 1 in Canada, the US hard rock and rock charts, and number 2 on the Billboard 200, and is gold in Canada. There were 5 singles off of this one. Caravan hit number 44 in Canada and number 38 on the US mainstream rock charts, and was Rock Album of the Year at the 2012 Junos. The final studio disc from Rush. Brian ended up going with B.U.to.B. Sean, your pick off this last one.
I went with The Garden. Closes the album, closes the chapter on Rush, and it does it so beautifully.
I cannot disagree with you with that pick at all. The Garden is my pick off of this one. And this boils down to, now, most of my picks were based off live albums. This was based off actually seeing this tour live. And it's at this point that Rush pulls out this small string ensemble and does this song. And yes, Geddy's voice doesn't necessarily hold up as well on this disc as previous albums, but his more mature voice lends itself well to this one track.
Absolutely. 100%.
And the strings on this were so good. And this was a moment, like, you know how like when you go see an artist and you're like this, you have those obscure tracks. You're like, I wonder if they're going to do this one. Clockwork Angels, that tour, this song was fantastic live with a string ensemble. And I'm going to say this, and I know I've said it before. Dear listeners, go see the band before you can't go see the band. Like, had I missed that tour, I would have kicked myself, because that was a moment. That was a live, cherished moment. And I know it sounds really, really weird because, like, we went through like how many years of no live music during the pandemic. And you're like, man, I wish I'd seen this band. And I wish I'd seen this band. Go see the band before you can't go see the band. And I recognize that concert tickets can get expensive, but you're going to kick yourself if at the end of that tour, there's no more.
I can vouch for this because I missed this tour. Because the night of this show, I had a deviated septum taken care of. So I wasn't going out anywhere.
No.
And I missed this show in my area, and I have regretted it ever since.
I mean, you had good reason.
I mean, I did. And then, we stayed up really late because I had like really groovy painkillers, and we watched the Fare Thee Well thing on YouTube, which was The Dead with Bruce Hornsby and Trey Anastasio. That was something I watched.
All right. So now we get to the hard part here. 20 albums and 1 song. Now, my lovely wife, Carrie, who's not on this show, gave me her only one. She didn't give me the full 20 list, but she gave me her only one. Her only one is actually Far Cry from Snakes and Arrows.
Nice.
All right, Sean, you know the drill here.
From the album Rush, I went with In the Mood. From Fly By Night, I went with By Tour and The Snow Dog. From Crest of Steel, I went with The Necromancer. I don't know why I'm doing voices for these titles. From 2112, I went with A Passage to Bangkok. From A Farewell to Kings, I went with Cygnus X1. From Hemispheres, I went with Hemispheres. From Permanent Waves, I went with The Spirit of Radio. From Moving Pictures, I went with Vital Signs. From Signals, I went with The Analog Kid. From Grace Under Pressure, I went with Red Sector A. From Power Windows, I went with Marathon. From Hold Your Fire, I went with Time Stands Still. From Presto, I went with The Pass. From Roll the Bones, I went with Ghost of a Chance. From Counterparts, I went with Nobody's Hero. It feels like this list is not ending, but we're almost there, folks. From Test for Echo, I went with Test for Echo. From Vapor Trails, I went with Freeze. From Feedback, I went with their cover of The Who's The Seeker. From Snakes and Arrows, I went with Armor and Sword. And from Clockwork Angels, I went with The Garden. And if you were listening, you already know my pick, my only one, is The Spirit of Radio.
All right. This is going to be really, really tough, but let me go through the list here. From their self-titled debut, I went with In the Mood. From Fly By Night, I went with Anthem. From Caress of Steel, I went with Lakeside Park. From 2112, I went with the title track. From A Farewell to Kings, I went with Closer to the Heart. From Hemispheres, I went with The Trees. From Permanent Waves, I went with The Spirit of Radio. Off of Moving Pictures, I went with Tom Sawyer. From Signals, I went with Subdivisions. Off of Grace Under Pressure, I went with Red Sector A. From Power Windows, I went with Marathon. From Hold Your Fire, I went with Time Stand Still. From Presto, I went with The Pass. From Roll the Bones, I went with Ghost of a Chance. From Counterparts, I went with Animate. Off of Test for Echo, I went with Resist. From Vapor Trails, I went with Sweet Miracle. Off of Feedback, I went with 7 and 7 Is. From Snakes and Arrows, I went with Far Cry. And from Clockwork Angels, I went with The Garden. And I thought I knew this was going to be easy, but I'm wrong. In preparation for this, the minute we said, oh yeah, we're going to do the Rush episode. It's going to be Canada Day. It's going to be great. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, it's going to be Animate. It's going to be Animate. I absolutely love that song. But it's not. Because I want to freeze this moment just a little bit longer.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going with Time Stands Still. Because as much as I love Animate, Time Stands Still is just one of those songs that is, it's everything. It's happy. It's whimsical. It's catchy as hell. And it's a bop. The song's a bop.
Yes. But it's just so meaningful.
Oh yeah. It's the best of everything that is Rush. Great songwriting, great lyrics, and great musicianship all the way through. Sean, thank you so much for this. Now, please let our listeners know, now that we've talked about Rush's music for a little over an hour, where can they find your music?
You know, because we're talking about Rush, I really want to focus on the Money for the Toll album Land, because that we were all into just Rush and yes, and Floyd and Dream Theater, but Rush, you can tell, is a huge influence on ours, especially with songs like Balance and the instrumental Butterscotch. I really would just, go to Linktree, put in Money for the Toll. It's Linktree/Money for the Toll. Get that album. Just enjoy it. Listen to it from beginning to end in one sitting. It's a journey. It's dark at times. It's uplifting at other times. But it's a journey, but it's definitely, it's our love letter to prog rock, I guess. And that album was a labor of love. We broke up in 2001 and released an album in 2022. So anything is possible.
John, thank you so much for this. And I know we have a lot more music to listen to down the road. And to you, our dear listeners, first of all, once again, happy Canada Day. If you are listening to this on release day, go out and listen to some fantastic tunes, no matter what side of the border you're on. But until next time, you guys know the drill. If there is an artist that he wants to cover on There Can Only Be One, or an album he wants to cover on Spin, Shuffle, Skip, hit us up on social media at OnlyOneCast, or go to our website at NotThatBadCast.com. And while you're there, make sure you do come back for that end of the year There Can Only Be One episode, because there's a lot that came out in 2025 that we need to catch up on. Until next time, he's Sean, I'm Jay. You guys are awesome. This is There Can Only Be One, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.